Hey, yo, YouTube, what's up? It's your boy Louis Cypher, and I'm glad I got my throat back. But I've already discussed this on my Black channel, my Black Issues channel, and since this is my alt-right politics channel, I'd like to share it with y'all. As I'm going to share with you my estimation of the feasibility of Blexit, and if it's possible that African Americans will turn the election in Donald Trump's favor in 2020. No beating around the bush. I'm kind of skeptical to that end for certain reasons. But first, I'd like to just acknowledge the elephant in the room. I think that it is important that more African Americans start registering as Republicans. Given all their contradictions, I think that it is in our best interest to show that a dissenting voice of opinion is being raised up against the Democratic Party. And better yet, I think it's time for more people to start identifying as Republicans, because to be a Republican means that you are fighting for the rights of the smallest minority in the world, which is the individual. I don't have to tell you that the Republican Party were the first ones to support African Americans in the Reconstruction South, that they've been criminally post-racial since their inception. They've had the first Black Congress people, Black senators, and what have you. But more to the point, on a philosophical point, to acknowledge that you're a Republican means that you are walking a tightrope between nationalism and fascism, between conservatism and progressivism, between environmentalism and industrialization. To say that you're a Republican means that you're a fence sitter, that you do not want to go either way. And in that regards, I don't think it's possible for a Republican to be a fascist. Now, there are some fascists posing as Republicans, and it actually fills my heart to see that the Groyper Wars is going on, because that sets a clear line in the sand. Republicans are at odds with white supremacy. They're post-racial, but at the same time, they support traditional values and are fearful of homosexuality. They support Christianity, but they're diametrically opposed to pathological altruism. It's a counterbalance situation that perfectly encapsulates what everyone in the Republican Party is trying to do, trying to reserve, maintain, and protect the republic from naked democratic power. And with that said, I would like to tell you why it is hard for Black voters to come together. Quite simply, there are four desperate types of African American voters. I'm going by Eugene Robinson's definition of a Black American. There's four basic groups. The first group is the transcendent class of African Americans, the super wealthy, the industrialists, the entrepreneurs, your Jay-Z's, your Tyler Perry's, your Oprah Winfrey's. They will lean towards the Democratic Party because even though they're supposedly leaders, they still could only stay but a few paces above the crowd. After the transcendent groups, you have the emergent group. These are immigrants who they have some romantic feelings towards the Republican notion of rugged individualism because they came over here. Some of them swam over here, so they don't want to come to this country and see African Americans, Black Americans, Native African Americans throwing away the gifts and opportunities that this country is providing. Unfortunately, the emergent class, they too are leaning towards the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party offers them a faster line towards citizenship. There's also the multicultural emergent class, which is basically, mixed families. They're more part of the mainstream, but that's neither here nor there. Transcendent and emergent. Your next group is your abandoned class. The abandoned class, African Americans, as the name details, are those who are stuck in welfare, in and out of the criminal justice reform, poverty-stricken, and they too, of course, will side with the Democrats because that is where their paychecks are coming in. if they don't vote at all. And then there's the mainstream African Americans, union workers, middle class, hardworking, educated, guys like me, but guys like people like Candace Owens. Those are the prime real estate for Donald Trump to cull away some black votes away from the Democratic Party, because I doubt that they'll get it from the transcendent transcendent, emergent, and the abandoned class. It's very unlikely. Ironically enough, you have TEAM, and the black community simply doesn't have a team for Donald Trump to court. Worse yet, if we're talking about the mainstream class, you're generally talking about black males who, for the most part, don't participate in voting. I think only 70% of black males vote anyway. And if they do vote, I don't see them being attracted to the idea that they'll be voting to make their mothers and sisters and wives unemployed under strict Republican austerity budget cuts. We're in a bad situation all the way around. Like I said, Bernie Sanders' plan is a death sentence. To use the most vulgar vernacular, in the Democratic whorehouse, we are the bottom bitches, and South Americans are the strawberries. South Americans could give the Democratic Party Texas. So they're all but abandoning us, and it is their intention to put tens of millions of low-skilled workers in our neighborhoods to compete with our sons and daughters for employment. Black people, black Americans, in Bernie Sanders' wacky scheme, will be paying the bill for the South Americans who work off the books. There is no way in hell black Americans should be voting for the Democratic Party, but we're trapped because voting for the Republican Party means that we will be making our family members unemployed. I think what's going to end up happening is that we're going to see a low black turnout because we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and game theory would dictate that we're going to choose the least painful option, the second least painful option to voting with Donald Trump, and that is to stay home and come up with a kind of shitty post hoc rationalization as to why we didn't participate, possibly reparations or something like that. That's where it stands. We're probably going to stay home, heckle the Democratic and Republican parties, and whoever wins, wins, whoever loses, loses. Either way, the black community is fucked because we have no team. It's been your boy Louis Cypher, signing out.